The Bible is an ancient collection of writings comprised of 66 separate books written over approximately 1,600 years by at least 40 distinct authors. The Old Testament contains 39 books written from approximately 1500 BC to 400 BC. The New Testament contains 27 books written from approximately 40 to 90 AD. The original Old Testament was written mainly in Hebrew, with some Aramaic, while the original New Testament was written in Common Greek. The Old Testament, or the historical record of the Jews, was written down on leather scrolls and tablets over centuries, and the authors included kings, shepherds, prophets, and other leaders. Beginning as early as 250 BC, the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek by Jewish scholars in Alexandria, Egypt. Although the Jewish scriptures were copied by hand, they were extremely accurate, copy to copy. The Jews had a system of scribes who developed intricate and ritualistic methods for counting letters, words, and paragraphs to ensure that no copying errors were made. These scribes dedicated their entire lives to preserving the accuracy of the holy books. A single copy error would require the immediate destruction of the entire scroll. Starting in about 40 AD and continuing to about 90 AD, the eyewitnesses to the life of Jesus, including Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, James, Peter, and Jude, wrote the Gospels, letters and books that became the Bible's New Testament. These authors quoted from books of the Old Testament and widely circulated their material so that by about 150 AD, early Christians were referring to the entire set of writings, new and old, as a whole. In 382 AD, the Bible was translated from its original Greek into Latin, and by 500 AD, the Bible had been translated into over 500 languages. But by 600 AD, only 100 years later, the Bible had been restricted to only one language, Latin. The Catholic Church of Rome refused to allow the Bible to be available in any language other than Latin. Those in possession of non-Latin scriptures could be executed. This gave the Church ultimate power. Nobody could question their biblical teachings because few people other than priests could read Latin. The Church capitalized on this forced ignorance through the 1,000-year period from 400 AD to 1400 AD, known as the Dark Ages. The first handwritten English-language Bible manuscripts were produced in the 1380s AD by John Wycliffe, an Oxford professor, scholar, and theologian. The Pope was so infuriated by his translation of the Bible into English that 44 years after Wycliffe had died, he ordered his bones to be dug up, crushed, and scattered into a river. One of Wycliffe's followers, John Huss, was burned at the stake in 1415, with Wycliffe's manuscript Bibles used as kindling for that fire. The last words of John Huss were, "In 100 years God will raise up a man whose calls for reform cannot be suppressed." Almost exactly 100 years later, in 1517, Martin Luther nailed his famous 95 Theses of Contention onto the church door at Wittenberg, beginning the Protestant Reformation by challenging the authority of the Pope and saying that the Bible is the only source of divinely revealed knowledge. His translation of the Bible into the language of the people in 1522, German instead of Latin, made it more accessible, causing a tremendous impact on the church, and influenced the translation into English. Johann Gutenberg invented the printing press in the 1450s, and the first book to ever be printed was a Latin-language Bible. The invention of the printing press meant that Bibles could finally be effectively produced in large quantities in a short period of time. In 1496, the Bible was translated into English for the public at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. The people were so hungry to hear the Bible in a language that they could understand that within 6 months there were 20,000 people packed in the church, and at least that many outside, trying to get in. Over the next several hundred years, the Bible was translated into many different versions, from the King James Bible to the New American Standard. According to the Smithsonian Department of Anthropology, over the course of its 3,500-year history, the Bible has remained the most historically accurate document from antiquity. And with 3.9 billion copies, the Bible remains the most well-read and influential book in the history of the world.